This is a recent project on the assessment of the driving risk using telematic data. And it is a joint work with my colleague, Andre Badescu, who is in the audience, and also our PhD student, Sheldon Lin. And Sheldon is the main contributor to the project, and who happened to be a Korean. Sheldon, could you stand up? Okay. Okay, so here is the outline of the talk. So I will begin with some background about how this project started. Okay. Then I'm going to talk about the challenges and in the modeling and the analysis of the data. Okay. Then I'm going to present our approach, as I mentioned. This is the idea from Sheldon, okay, and the approach to quantify the driving risk. Then, if I have time, I'm going to talk about the ongoing project. Okay, so this is a project of a larger project. Okay, so the project was done from multiple years of collaboration between us, Andre and I, and our PhD students, and Joel Tapp, a global leader in telematic data collection and management. And we have been training their interns for several years. And here are some projects we have been supervising. Okay, you can see from the title of these projects, you can see that all these projects are centered at the evaluation and the classification of the driving risk, both at the trip level and the driver's level. Okay. And also in a very data-driven way. I just want to mention that actually our currently research focus is to provide a solution to the problems closely related to the industry, and hopefully our work can have an immediate impact on insurance, and this is one of them. Okay, also clearly, driving risk is very important to auto insurance. Okay? So you can see if you want to price auto insurance policy accurately, you really need to quantify the driving risk. Okay? And the current approach for pricing the driving risk is the following. For pricing the insurance is the following. So basically, we try to risk classify or risk differentiation. Then we rank and quantify for the pricing purposes. Okay. Now, if you understand the telematic data, which the data collected from a telematic device for the driving behavior, right? So you can see the data we collect is a time series data, which provide very rich behavior information of drivers, okay, at the trip level. And so current research is the following. The most research uses drivers' attributes, gender, age, race, or car type, fuel type, and so on, right? And also summary statistics of trips. For example, how many miles the driver drive each month or each year, and at a certain threshold, the acceleration about certain threshold, how many times, okay, how frequent, and so on. Then they use a regression framework, modeling framework, okay, to use these variables. Okay. But such an approach clearly has issues, right? So you can see it doesn't fully utilize the rich behavior information embedded in the telematic data. Okay? And also the summary statistics are very sensitive to how they are calculated and how often. Okay? So it's a problematic, right? When the trip length and the scale of the event count from trip to trip and from the driver to driver varies, okay? And a very small change can have a very significant effect on a regression model. So as a result, the quantification of the driving risk becomes very challenging. Okay, so here is some idea to show you the driving risk. Okay, so here we have 3 different driving behavior. The top one is a normal driving behavior. Here we talk about acceleration. Okay, the middle one is talked about the drowsy driving behavior. People sleep behind the wheel. Okay, and the bottom one is aggressive driving behavior. So the driver constantly accelerated, deaccelerate, or braking, right? So in this case, so you can see here, the time series data looks pretty normal. Okay, So you can see on the top, the time series data looks pretty normal in terms of acceleration, longitudinal acceleration. And the middle one, the middle panel, you can see, because the person sleeps behind the wheel, when suddenly he or she wake up and see something happen, he or she will brake very hard. So you can see, right, the downwards. Okay. Then for aggressive, it happens more often, but less severe. Okay, less severe. You can see here. So now we have 3 different driving behavior, and the bottom 2 are very risky. And sometimes the drowsy driving behavior is more risky, more dangerous than the aggressive, because at least when someone drives aggressively, he or she is fully awake, so know what's happening, right? But if someone sleeps behind the wheel, he doesn't know. So, okay, so very dangerous. Okay, so how do we identify the driving risky or dangerous driving behavior? Okay, and here is our approach. Okay, so we first collect the telematic data, so we have 3 panels. To summarize our approach at a high level. So on the left panel, you can see, so we first collect high frequency telematic signals or data, okay? Then we decompose the signal into multiple levels at a different time scale, okay? So decompose. Now use that, then we aggregate, then we use that to use a severity model to model the severity of the acceleration or deacceleration. So using a mixture model here. In the middle part is the center part presents the normal driving behavior. The tail part left represents the harsh braking or harsh deacceleration, and the right part, the right tail part represents aggressive acceleration or aggressive. Okay, aggressive. Okay, so once we do that, then we can come up with a risk index to measure how risky or how dangerous the driving behavior. Okay, so in this case, if it's a normal driving behavior, the index value of the index is low. If the driver drives dangerously, then the index goes up. Okay. Then, if the driver drives normally again, the index goes down, and so on. Aggressive, go up. Okay. Then we can also use the index with a credibility model to update the index sequentially. Okay. So that's the idea here. Okay. And here is a little bit more detail. Okay. So, as we know, the time series data, the telematic signals are time series data, okay? And so the relevant behavior are harsh braking, harsh acceleration, a short burst of acceleration, right? And also the sustained of normal maneuvers, okay? And all these behaviors are local, okay, in time. Okay? And also can be occur at the different durations, okay? So because of that, the wavelets are attractive, are a good tool to model this behavior, to recognize the patterns, okay? And the short-lived local deviation is presented at the finer time scale, and the longer sustained patterns is represented at the closer time square, okay? Will be more detailed in the few slides, okay? So that's why we choose the wavelet representation to analyze the telematic data, right? Okay, so here is a little bit of technical details. Suppose you have the signal, okay? The top is the telematic signals, okay? So in this case, we decompose the signal into multiple levels, usually 6 levels in practice, okay? And for each level, there is a wavelet representation, okay? Wavelet representation, okay? Okay? And so the interpretation is very simple. Lower level, okay, probably I will just say this. Let me see. Okay, okay. Lower level represents the short duration local changes. Large level, higher level represents smoother, longer duration changes. And as I just mentioned, 6 levels in practice is enough because it can capture more than 90% of the patterns, okay? Sorry. Okay, so after we after decomposition, so then we aggregate, we identify the severity, high severity of the telematic signal. Okay, so we aggregate the coefficients across selected levels, as I said, 6 levels. Okay, so in this case, the resulting data is a single triple level time series data. Okay, single time series data. So with the data we collect after aggregation, then we do some technical. We try to reduce the temporal dependence. Okay, by doing some sampling and also thinning technique. Okay, apply thinning technique to each of the chips. Okay, so in this case, we have a fairly nice, I would say, independent sample. So we use this sample to fit a mixture model. Okay, so idea is here is very simple. Why would we use a mixture model? The idea is a mixture model represents all the driving behavior. As I just mentioned, the middle one represents the normal behavior. The tail parts represent the dangerous behavior. Okay, and so here is. Okay, so now, sorry. Okay, so basically we use a Gaussian uniform mixture model. So this is a very technical, you don't need to know. And once we use a model, we can use some fitting algorithm, okay? All right. So once we have the model, then we recount how many data points at each level in each the components, each layer. So if you understand the mixture level, so in this case, each mixture level contains multiple components, right? So now we count how many. So in this case, we count how often the signal enter each layer, okay? Each layer, okay? So in this case, a trip is summarized not only by the how many of a normal behavior pattern occur, but also how deep, because we have multiple layers. As I mentioned, the layer on the left represents the hash breaking at a different level, and on the right represents the hash acceleration at a different level. So, okay. And then we count how many coefficients in each layer, and then we model these counts using a Poisson gamma model. I think Professor Xi just used the model for different purposes. Okay, so in this, the reason is very similar. The reason we use a Poisson gamma because the model can be sequentially updated. Okay, so and also can incorporate the exposure, meaning the trip level and the length of the trip. Okay. I try to make, I want to be very mindful about my time because it's late. Okay, so now I want to represent a control study to show you the approach we propose really works. Okay, really works. So here we have data coming from this paper. Okay, so in this paper, the authors asked 5 different drivers to drive the vehicle in 3 different manners. Okay, normal, drowsy, and aggressive. Okay, so then the telematic device record from the start to the beginning, cover everything. Right? So this is actually the label data, but it is control data. It's not simulated data. Okay, it's a control data. The problem with the telematic data analysis is that we really don't have a very good real data. Okay, so okay, and that's why we use this data, but we're currently working with the Geotab, the company, to acquire their collision data for this project. Okay, so now we, as I just mentioned, and so we now fit the severity and frequency component using all the 40 trips we collect from the control study. Okay, so here is the fitting. Okay. So after that, so because now we have a mixture model, we have a mixture model, right? So Gaussian uniform mixture, right? So in this case, if you understand the mixture model, we have m components now, okay, n components, okay? So now we count how many, or m layers, right? So we count how many coefficients or telematic signals from all the levels is in the layer, okay, in the layer, okay? Then we use the Poisson gamma to calculate posterior index, intensity, posterior intensity, okay? So the formula is very standard if you understand the credibility theory, European credibility theory. So this is very standard, right? Okay, then at the end, we have this formula for the risk index. It's a weighted average of the intensity from each layer, okay, each layer, okay? So, and the coefficient, just want to mention the coefficient, this is a weighted average, okay? For the farther away, the layer farther away, we assign higher weight, okay, to emphasize the severity of the driving behavior, okay? Okay, and here is the numerical result, which show our approach works quite well, okay? So you can see we have 6 drivers, as I mentioned, okay, from the control study, okay? So each driver asked to drive in highway and the secondary road, okay? And in 3 behavior, normal, aggressive, and drowsy, okay? So you can see here. So we have exposure. You don't need to know the exact what the number, but what important is for each trip, we use the index, risk index to calculate, okay? We calculate the risk index for each trip. For the normal one, you can see for driver 1, it's a 3.47. for the aggressive driving, aggressive trip, the index is 15.64. You can see much higher now. And for another normal driving in the secondary highway, another driving is a 5.442. Then the drowsy one is a 14.86. Okay, and all these numbers show that we can really separate the normal driving from the aggressive driving, not only aggressive driving, but also drowsy driving. And as I want to mention that drowsy driving is really difficult to identify. And this approach really works for the drowsy driving. Aggressive driving, okay, we kind of know, right? If someone drive very fast, accelerate a lot, and decelerate a lot, you know it's dangerous. But for drowsy, it looks normal, but it's not normal, right? So you can see, we can identify, and we also can identify each driver by update the trip, okay? So you can see here on the top, okay, the first trip is normal, the index value is 3.47. Then the person drive aggressively. Now, combine these two trips, the index should go up, right? So it goes up to 9.49. Now, because in the third trip, the driver drive normally, the index drop a little bit. But this index taking account of all three trips, right? Then after another dangerous driving, drowsy driving, then index goes up again. So you can see we can update the driver's risk index by looking at how many trips the person has done in the past, okay? Oh, no time. Okay, so anyway, so in this case, we can really, my point is we can really separate dangerous driving from normal driving using this technology, okay? Right. Okay, now the last second slide just show you actually, we not only can separate from the 40 trips, we also conducted the one left out validation to show it really works. Okay, so for each one, for 6 drivers, we take one out, then use the remaining to fit the model, then use the model, use the index, then use the model, then calculate the index for the one left out. Okay, so you can see, I want you to pay attention to the second panel here. So if the driving is normal, it should be for the validation, for the binary validation, okay, it should be under the -9, 50%, basically 0.5. If it's a dangerous driving, this is a probability of risky driving, okay? It should be above. Now you can see there's a clear separation. So that means our approach really works, okay? Okay, so let me wrap this up. Maybe I should skip the ongoing project, okay? Just wrap this up, and then because I don't want to go over too much time. So the approach is fully signal-driven. No clean label, we don't need to. No vehicle covariates, okay? And it contributes 3 things simultaneously. We have a time series representation that preserves local driving dynamic. There's a formal notion of severity anchored by at the portfolio level, okay? And we have a dynamic trip to driver updating mechanic, okay? So maybe just a few words about the ongoing. So now we are moving to multivariate because we want to include other variables. We want to include, currently we only use longitudinal acceleration. And in the future, we want to include the lane change, harsh cornering, the lateral acceleration basically, okay, and other things, okay. And also we want to move from the pattern to event because a pattern can be clustered together. Two patterns may represent the same event, so we want to move. So we want to do a motive discovery, and if we can do that successfully, I think we can use a functional regression model for pricing. Okay, so that's our idea. I think I stop here. And here, if you are interested in our project, this is a paper you can download from our website, and here's a QR code. Okay, thank you very much.